Here we are going to talk about the web services. So basically, what's the web services, the architecture? As you can see, we still have a database, and then right now, the web server has been changed to web services, and web services still are hosted on a web server and with the URL to address to that web server, and on that server we can create or open different ports, and then each of the port can be a web service. And these web services, they are going to provide resources or functionalities for the clients to invoke. Compared to the website architecture, that the web server only supports one client, the web service can support multiple clients by having one specific document, which is called the Web Service API. So the full name for the API is called Application Programming Interface. You will hear this term a lot if you are going to become, you can say, a software developer. So the API is mainly the programming interface. It's mainly the programming interface. Usually we will call the API for example, libraries or SDKs or web services. So basically, the meaning for the API is that this component or this service, what are the functionalities that are provided by this service, and then how to interact with the service to invoke different types of functionality. So for example, if the service allows you to retrieve some of the data, and the API document will define how to send a request to that service. Should it be a HTTP GET request? Should it be HTTP PUT or HTTP POST? And what are the parameters that this service supports? And what are the formats that the request should organize their parameter? What are the encoding, what are the formats of the date, time, and what should be the format for different attributes of the criteria. And also the API also defines the format and also the encoding for the response. So when the web service receive a request, and if the request is organized correctly according to the web service API, then the web service can successfully understand the client's request, and then it will perform the corresponding procedure or process on the request. And then finally, after the execution of the request, it will prepare the response according to the design explained on this API document. For example, what are the data models, and what are the encodings, and what are the specific, you can say, standard that the web service follows. So after that, the web service will prepare the response according to that API document, and finally it will return to the client. And when the client receives that response, it needs to parse or understand that response according to the web service API. So like I said, the API, the Application Programming Interface, this term can, not only can be used to describe the interface of a web service, it can also be used to describe the interface of a certain, you can say, certain, for example, like the library or the SDK. For example, a library may support multiple functions, and what are the input parameters for each of the functions. What's the definition for the parameter? What's the, you can say, the range of the possible values for that parameter, and what should be, you can say, the data type of each parameters. And also the interface could also, the API should also define what are the response that you will receive will receive from that function. And after you receive retrieve that according to the API document, then you can design the way to parse the information from the response of that function. So that's very important. As you can see, this is a very commonly seen term. And then right now, our context is the web service. So we are talking about the web service API. So after the web service prepare the API, the web service API, then the clients they can we can create multiple clients, or different developers can create their own clients, and then as long as they follows the web service API provided by this web service, then they can create you can say the connectors to speak with this web service or communicate with this web service according to this API document, and they can you can say exchange information or to perform some interactions, or you can say some transactions with this like web service. And so as long as both the client side and also different types of client, both of the client side and also the web service side, they have these like commonly agreed API, then in this case their communication can be established. So as you can see, compared to the website architecture, that only one client can be supported by the web server, as they are in the isolated and integrated system. The web service architecture, it allows the reuse of the resources provided by the web service. So the resources could be the data or some files or some functionalities, for example, like some execution, some algorithms. So those are the resources that could be provided by the web services. And then with the API document released to the client, and then different clients can be constructed to speak with this web service to utilize those resources. So that's the most important, you can say, characteristics to web services, which is the reusable resources. Okay, so and here are some of the web service example, or you can say the web service API examples. For example, like I believe many people are using the Facebook created by Meta. And you have a lot of posts, and also you upload different, you can say, videos or photos, and you have friends, and those information actually can be retrieved by using their API, and that means you don't need to. You are not necessarily bounded by the Facebook web page to retrieve those information. You can also create your own client application, or you can say your own web page, and then your not client web page, as long as it can support the Facebook Graph API, then you can communicate with the Facebook service, and then to retrieve the information that you are allowed to retrieve and allowed by the Facebook. So, and how to communicate with the services, the Facebook services, you need to follow the API document defined by them. So if you are interested, you can take a look over here. And they are, and actually most of the modern and current websites, they define their own services, but the differences is just that whether they open or they release their service API to the public, and if they release their API document, like the Facebook or Flickr or GeoNames, then that basically means that they allow the general public to use the resources in their service. Of course, those services may have some restriction, like you are not allowed to retrieve all the data from the service, or you have a certain limit of number of requests to use in a certain period of time. So there are various of restrictions that could you can say that could exist for different services. But some of the services, or some of the systems, they don't really release their web service API to the public. Then in that case, you can treat that system as they are not allowing programmers or users to utilize their system other than their own, you can say, web client. So if right now you want to build another client to utilize their service resources, then they may forbid you to do that. Okay, so I encourage you guys to take at least a brief look at these service APIs. The different company or different system, they have different design, and it is very important to understand how they design their API before you are going to create a connector to communicate with their web services. And here, let's take the GeoNames web service API as an example. So if you link to the GeoNames web service API, you will see that it's actually is a web service. It actually provides the web services for the geocoding or reverse geocoding and or the search of the feature information according to some geospatial or geographical names. So as you can see, usually the web service API document, it will briefly introduce what exactly is the content or resource provided by the web service. For example, like the GeoNames search, and the GeoNames it supports the full text search in the XML and JSON format, and then you will see some service description in their API document. And usually, if it's you can say the web service API, and that allows users to retrieve some data or to upload or you can pass some parameters to the web service, then in this case, they usually have a table explaining what are the parameters they allow. So, for example, as you can see, the parameters are listed in the table, like the postal code, place name, country, max rows, style, and also chart set, and east, west, north, south. Those are the parameters, the names of those parameters. And the data type of those parameters are defined here as well, and followed by their description or definition over here. So with the explanation of the parameters, then the GeoNames API document also present some of the, you can say, their interface or their operations. For example, like one of the operation is to allow the users to find nearby populated place, and it's kind of like the reverse geocoding. And then it's using a certain web service type, which is the REST, that we are going to talk about later. And they will also introduce what exactly is the URL that the client needs to send the request to. So as you can see, it will be the api.geonames.org and / find nearby place name, and with the question mark over here. And as you already know that with the question mark, then supposedly it needs to follow by the query options. And the query options could be the parameters over here, including the latitude, LAT, LNG. I believe they are latitude and longitude. And also there are some other criteria that could be set for this, you can say, for this operation, like the LANG radius. LANG indicates the language and style, and also local, country, and cities. Those are the possible parameters to be set. And also they were defined what would be the result returned by this operation or by this request. So as you can see, it will return the closest populated places and for the latitude and longitude query. And then there will be some example queries listed over here, like here. So as you can see, the client can specify what is the latitude and longitude, and also some username for you can say the to measure how many requests sent by this user in one day, for example, to execute some you can say the limitation in terms of the number of requests. And this is just one operation, and then the other operation could be the country info query, and you can query the country info including the bounding box, the capital, the area size and population, and those are the information that you can get. And as you can see, it's also the URL for this API operation is the api.geonames.org country information, and with the query marks of the question marks over here. And then there are two possible you can say parameters can be set, including the country and also language. And the result will be the country info, then including those information over here. And this is an example over here. And as you can see, this operation can also support the return of the format in the CSV file format. And for the previous operation, it also supports the XML and also the JSON format response. So these are just two operations defined by the GeoNames Web Service API, and there are many more, you can say, operations supported by this web service. And for different systems, actually, they also support different web service interfaces for the clients to execute or to invoke and those functionalities. So this is one of the example that you can take as the reference to understand what's the format of a web service API. Okay, and let's briefly talk about the comparison between the websites and the web services. So as you can see earlier, we talked about that in the early age of the web, most of the applications they are in the website form. But however, they will have some problem of the reuse of the resources inside the websites, so that we have the development of the web services, and supposedly the web services should help us to have a more reusable and also more open web resource interchange between the web components that we have currently. So let's briefly compare their pros and cons. So in terms of the website, it is intended for the use by the humans, because usually you will return you can say the information that it returns are usually in the HTML format. So in this case, the HTML is meant for visualization purpose. So when your web browser receives that, then it knows how to render the web page in a way that the developer wants to show. And so as you can see, usually it's in the HTML format with a mix of contents and also the presentation styles. And so because the websites are intended to used by humans, so it usually has the friendly graphical user interface, or we call it GUI or GUI. And but however, the problem of the websites are they are isolated and closed system, and it's difficult to share the resources with external software or users. So on the other hand, in terms of the web services, it's intended to be used by other programs on the web, or it could be, and it's usually share the information in the structured format, for example, like the XML format or JSON format that we talked about before, or it could be in other structured formats, and that a program or an application can easily parse and also reuse. And usually, web services are considered open if they release their API document to the public. So that's that is a brief comparison between the websites and web services. So at the end, there are some characteristics that we can identify for the web service. So basically, they are kind of like, they are open to other software systems over the web, and as long as you have the open API document, so everyone on the web can easily create the connector to the web services, and then to invoke the functionalities, and to retrieve the resources located in those web services. And the web services, they are independent of the programming language or the operating systems, because the web service API are usually executed on through the web protocol, which is basically on the you can say HTTP or HTTPS protocol. And then, and most of the programming language and also the operating systems, they support the like web protocol, the HTTP and HTTPS. So in this case, it's kind of independent of those different programming languages or operating systems. That means the clients can use different programming language or different, you can say, operating system or or devices to communicate with the web services. And then web services are considered loosely coupled, so it's not so integrated. That is not so tightly integrated between the client and also the server, or the client and the services. It's kind of like loosely coupled, and if you have a new client and that needs to utilize some of the resources from different web services, then they are free to remix those resources together, and then to create their own client application. So as you can see over here from this graph, the application client, it could retrieve information from multiple application servers, and the application servers, they could retrieve different resources or different data from different data services or databases on the web. And so we can like freely remix those information together, or remix those information and also functionalities together to create a new application. Finally, benefit by the web application, web technology, web services is also a one-for-all release and update. So if there's a new data or new functionality created by the developer of that web service, and as long as as soon as they, you can say, update their web service, and all the clients can utilize those new functionalities functionality. So it's a very convenient, you can say, development. But however, there's also one thing to be, you can say, to pay attention to, which is when there is a new operation or new functionality provided by the web service, in this case, if the client needs to support that new functionality, then it may need to revise or modify the connector or extend the connector so that it can utilize those functionality provided by the web services. So somehow it's actually very important to have the backward compatibility by the web services. If different versions of the web service API are largely different, then it will also cause some like troublesome for the clients to utilize the information by the web services. Okay, so that is basically some web service characteristics.